Yo, we live with another Dank Talk, man. We having some technical difficulties, so this time we're gonna try to host it on Dank Talk on my page. So we're gonna try to wait for Turk Fiend to join, and we're gonna get the show on the road, man. Instagram, y'all can't stop us, dog. There we go. There we go. Hey, man. Instagram hates you, boss. You doing something right.
I just
you doing
applied for a blue check mark today.
something, you doing something right,
We'll
man.
see if they grant me a blue check mark. That would be
Yeah,
dope.
yeah, man. Hey man, while we got y'all in here, yo, y'all please go follow us on YouTube, man. Same handles, man. Mr. Mac Blunts and Turk Fiend, man. Please. What's up, Danny? How you doing, baby? Glad to see you in the building, man. Sorry we couldn't do the show, but we got a banger for y'all this weekend, man. I got Danny Turpentine on the Business is Blooming podcast this weekend.
Nice.
Shout out to
Nice.
Turptown Tip too, man. I appreciate all the support, man. Shout out to Queen Kush too, man.
Yeah, man. I was gonna say, God damn it, I lost it. Yeah, that was a chaotic start. Oh yeah, if you're not already, go follow the Discord. Go to my Discord. We're about to start doing more live video and podcasts and stuff on the Discord. The reception and the connectivity is a lot better over there. And yeah, this Sunday, me, Mac Blunts, the homie Earl, Regal Beagle, and the homie Peter that runs my Discord, we're going to do a big Sunday sesh kind of thing. So like we're trying to use that more. And the goal is to shift these podcasts somewhere other than here soon.
Yeah, for sure, man. There's no reason we giving great free content over and over again to a platform that absolutely doesn't support us.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I hate that I can't post weed pictures on my Instagram anymore. Like that's one of the most heartbreaking things. Cause like I spent 6 years, 7 years, like posting so much weed content from like commercial grows, commercial labs that I worked in, my own grow, my seed, then eventually my seed work and stuff. And like, there was just so much content that was just flushed down the toilet. Like they don't give a fuck.
Man, I agree with her, but I would say Poster, man, you got such a loyal following, and I'm glad to say that I'm one of them, that no matter how many times your page gets shut down, man, we'll be right back. We'll
So
be,
here's
you know,
another thing that I thought about doing. So one of the things that I've been doing is just starting other pages with other content. So I got the Terpy Talk page where we do like different, it's just meme content and fucking AI stuff that I've been doing. And we've been doing like the real nug or fake posts lately and just, some of the AI stuff. But like I think I'm going to start another Instagram page that, that I don't do anything but just dump pictures there. So I'll
for sure,
still
man.
like my main page will be, the easiest way to communicate with me, but it's a page where like if it goes down, it goes down. And I'm backing all that stuff up now on my Reddit page. So like go follow me on my subreddit, Turfine Genetics. Follow me somewhere other than Instagram. That's what I tell people all the time. Like go follow us on YouTube. The homie here's on Twitch, does tons of video game stuff. So if that's your thing, like we both have other pages and this is like becoming the last place to follow us, and it's like, we're about to start, I'm going to hand over the Twitter and let my amazing wife run the Twitter for a little while, just because I just don't
You're
love
everywhere.
I just don't love their platform, and I'm doing
Yeah,
enough as it is. And I feel like to hand it off to somebody else, it'll have unique content because she'll put her own, feel on it and her own thing, and it'll be its own thing. And it's kind of like the Discord. Like the Discord isn't something that we set it up, and it's a great community for people to talk about genetics, mine, other people's, growing, whatever you want to talk about. But
yeah,
it's not something that like I'm overly moderating. Like if you have a problem and you feel like you need to go talk about it, go talk about it. Like, like with a lot of them, it's heavily moderated and like people don't want you to say anything negative about their work or this, that, or the other. And if you had a problem, hit me up first. But it's one of those things where like I want people to feel like it's something that I'm not overly, overlording.
yeah. No, for sure, man. I can attest to that, man. I'm a part of a few Discords, obviously yours included, and I must say, man, it's a great group of people inside of that Discord, man. If
These
you
guys are
want
awesome.
terpene genetics that you can't find, maybe terpene doesn't have them on the website, you can reach out to somebody in the community in the Discord and definitely get a hold of some
Oh yeah, that
genetics.
would be the best place.
Yeah, I've actually had somebody in the Discord do a cross with yours. I think it was your I don't remember what the cross was. I apologize off the top of my head. But yeah, they was like, hey, Mac Blunts, man, I know you're close to Turk. I want you to run these for me. Send them. He sent them to me. I was like, all right, you're up next, man. I'll definitely run them for you. So definitely check out the Discord. Mac Blunts will be creating his Discord very soon. Yeah, but follow us somewhere other than here, man. YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever
Something,
you can find us at, man.
something, something. Yeah, I mean, because like I said too, with the YouTube stuff, like all of these podcasts I post after the fact, my hope is that somebody will find them and then they'll realize like there's a ton of great episodes there that are worth sitting and binging on, because there's a ton of great content. And everybody that we've had on, all the episodes that you and I have done, they've gotten better and better and better. I think both of us have gotten a little more comfortable to just pacing and talking on camera and back and forth. And I think each one of these has gotten better and better. And like as we go, they're going to continue to get better as we get more content and put other things together. And I could talk weed shit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we'll never run out of shit to talk about. Like we
Hey,
won't.
I lost a lot of friends, man, because I can't have those type of conversations. Like I'd rather talk about weed, like so for sure. But bam, we gonna jump right into it, man. So what we at this week, Turk?
Well, so we've done like the last 2 weeks, I think have been some of the best ones we've done. Both of them were essentially like, it's kind of weird. We just kind of picked these topics. We didn't let's start at the beginning and go all the way through growing. And, it didn't happen like that.
Kind of more.
It was kind of just like, let's just pick a dart and throw it and just start somewhere and let's do episodes. And that's kind of where we're at. The last two have been about finishing, determining ripeness, end of grow, kind of getting everything prepped for harvest. Last week we kind of did a little bit on, finalizing that, getting to harvest, stuff like that. And, I think we could talk about, I think one of the good things that is kind of here is kind of the end, right? So drying, curing, trimming even, which isn't something you don't talk about it a lot, something everybody has to do, but it's something that's, it's super important. It's super important, You can ruin it all with a bad cure and a bad, harvest and a bad pull and not trimming it right. Like you can take decent weed and make it just junk,
Sure.
And then kind of the tail end of that, which is hash, or, even edibles if we have some time.
All right. So if I can start it off, man, I guess I would say, well, what's the goal when we're drying? What's the overall end goal, right? So as we know, the green stuff in the cannabis flower, right? It's chlorophyll, right? So doing my studies, doing my reading, what drying is just trying to expel the chlorophyll as slowly as possible.
Chloroform's the stuff you put on a rag and make people go to sleep. Supposedly, in every television show ever.
That don't sound right. Who's spraying chlorophyll? But yeah, you want to get the chlorophyll out of the plant as slowly as possible at the lowest temp as possible without getting bud rot and losing terpenes, right? So, in my opinion, I think that when I'm drying, I like to make sure that my buds have enough space. I harvest whole plants. I don't harvest stocks. I harvest whole plants. I hang them upside down, and I try to set the temperature anywhere between 55 to 65, no more than 65 degrees in my dry room. This dry, I use my bathroom, which I was fighting humidity, but adding a dehumidifier and a portable AC unit kind of helped me achieve those numbers. And I created a really slow dry this time, man. And it shows that the slower The slower you go, the better, in my opinion, that I've seen the smoke is afterwards.
So one thing that I want to say, kind of one of the things that in drying for flour, we're drying for flour. Um, the goal is to get rid of moisture. Chlorophyll kind of breaks down as a process of the plant dying, and then chlorophyll and kind of the general process of breakdown and death there is all kind of a byproduct of just trying to get the moisture out. So the biggest question we have to ask about drying is, where do you live? What is the normal humidity level where you live? Because that's clutch. Like you could throw a dehumidifier and a temperature, a hygrometer in your grow, but the reality is, if you live in an area where it's super wet all the time, it's still going to take you forever to properly dry. And so
Sir, I gotta say this. I gotta say this,
what's
bro.
up?
So my homie Dragonfire mentioned the My Herbs Now Dry. I'm not gonna lie, bro. I hate that motherfucker. I tried it and
It's
tried
a
it and
dehydrator, right?
ruined a bunch of weed, bro. Maybe you're doing it right where down south where you at, bro, but I still got that bitch sitting in my closet, bro. I bought it in Spain because the humidity was crazy,
It's
like you
just
were talking about.
it's just a dryer, right? We're just talking about something that's just the same shit you can get at Walmart, but it's branded. Like it's some sort of,
Right.
yeah. So those things have been around forever, and anybody who's ever grown weed has probably had one laying around at some point in time. So my favorite joke is about the lower that fell off. How many times do you see somebody make a post about, oh, a lower fell off and it just tumbled into the air dryer, and like now I'm test smoking it, right? You see this all the time. It's like the bottom branch fell off and somebody now has something to know. You got hungry and you picked some buds before you should have, and you threw them shits in. But I have used those. They're not great. And it's not really a thing, but like when I was younger, I heard tales of people putting them shits in the microwave, buds to dry. I've heard of people putting them in the oven.
Yeah.
I heard of people drying them on top of their lamps.
Well, I'll tell
Like
you
I've
what
heard
it
it
is,
all.
bro.
I've seen it all. But like there's worse ways to dry your weed, but there's also much, much, much better ways to dry your weed. If
Hey,
you
shout
dry
out to
it
White
and then
Fish
kind of,
Queen.
hey, what's up, guys? If you, oh no, it's you lady. If you dry it with that thing and then you still kind of jar cure it a little bit, like you do an initial dry with the herb. I'm not condoning this. I'm not condoning this behavior whatsoever. I'm just saying, if you were in a situation that sounds similar to this, this might be how one should proceed, because don't ever put your harvest in one of those things. Don't ever take big buds and put them in those herb dryers, whatever you do. But if you got that bud that fell off the plant and you're just going to
Throw it in
smoke
there.
it
Fine.
anyway,
Yeah,
there's
throw
a
it in there.
way to kind of do it so it's not horrible. You take a couple little lowers, depending on how larfy they are, how small they are, throw them on there, give it 24 hours, throw it in a jar, let it wet up again, pull it back out, let it dry out a little bit more. Do that 3 or 4 times over the course of a week, and you got something you could roll up and smoke. I mean, I wouldn't condone it as a thing to do with your harvest. Do not put your buds in that thing, like your whole harvest.
Yeah.
Dry that shit. Take the time. You've already put in so much effort. If you really get to the end of
Now,
8 or 10 weeks, you've already waited. You've done the hard part. Like,
I
just
must
wait.
say, I've tried Dragonfire's biomass and his hash, and it's great. Whatever he's doing with that dryer works for him in down south where he's at. But for me, bro, in my opinion, I think 4-day dry is just too quick.
We gotta
Another one of
we
my
gotta
homies.
address. Now I understand, because you said homie lives in the South. So now we got to talk about, back to kind of my point, which was drying weed will absolutely depend on where you live.
Yeah.
Now, when I've lived in areas where it was extremely dry, like very dry naturally, weed, you have to control how fast it dries. So like I always say, part of your goal in trying to get the water out is to dry the trichome heads before your terpenes evaporate completely, right?
Yep.
Because your goal is to get the water out, but you still want to have terpy weed, right? And so you run this risk of, like, if you dry it too fast, you're going to suck all those terps out with the moisture, right? And so you're just going to end up with hay. It's just going to taste like shit. But if you dry it too slow and you live in a moist climate, then you run the risk of, like, bud rot, problems. You know, it's tricky. Like, it really is tricky. So if you live somewhere where it's super humid, I mean, you might be looking at 2 weeks plus, even with a dehumidifier, to properly dry. Whereas if you live somewhere super dry, 8 days and you're probably looking at dust. Like,
What
just
about Florida?
crumbly dust.
You think Florida's very humid, right? I would assume, right?
It's one of probably the 2 or 3 most humid states in the
Right.
country. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so absolutely, the dryer probably is the option in Florida. You know, but
Have you been to
every time I use
Jamaica?
it,
Have you been to Jamaica?
I have.
Have you seen much of the weed that's grown, like, on the island, kind of before legalization, before they had, like, lots of indoor grows, or really
No.
anywhere tropical?
No, because
So, like,
when I
it's
went to Jamaica,
almost always dark, and it's
yeah,
almost always because it's so hard to dry in a place that's, like, tropically wet, like Florida even, or like the Bahamas, you know, anywhere, Jamaica, places like that. It's so humid everywhere, even in buildings, that it's so humid, it's almost impossible to perfectly dry weed. So
yeah.
it almost ends up molding a lot of times before it ever gets to a point, or the THC starts to degrade so badly that it gets to a point where you can almost never get dry weed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No worries. So, that was the problem. Every time I used the My Herbs Now dryer, and just being honest, man, like I'm not trying to shit on the brand, but my weed came tasting like hay every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
know, until I went back to hang dry. Now, there's a new thing on the market, which is the Canatrol, that really has my mind intrigued. Shout out Super Rich Endo. He has the Canatrol and he runs it. And I think that
What is it?
the Canatrol, it looks like a wine cooler. The big refrigerator now. It's like, I think it's like $3,000 or something like that. 20, maybe 2,500.
Wait. Are you talking about a vacuum dryer? A vac dryer?
No, it's called a Canatrol, and it's like a wine cooler, and it looks like a mini refrigerator. And right now it has the market drying and curing. It has the market on fire right now, bro. They even rent it out at the grocery shops here now. You can rent it out for like $300 for 4 or 5 days or some shit like that.
Send me a link when we get done. I want to know. Like, this is new to me. I haven't seen it, but I haven't been to a weed convention in a little while. So, like, some of the new weird stuff I haven't. I'm always down to hear it. But yeah, that's news to me. I have heard of people vac drying weed, like freeze drying, essentially like using the same freeze dryers that they use for, like, making solventless hash. I have heard of people, like, doing flour like that, but to be honest, I haven't smoked a lot of it, so, like, I can't really. It's one of those things that, like, the way to do it that's worked forever is the best way. Drying it slow, you know, but not too slow. Controlling your humidity during that period, getting all the moisture out, and then some level of drying. Like, one of the things you and I kind of talked about before this was, like, we both kind of have a thing. Like, I don't really like super dry, old, crumbly weed.
Nah.
You know, like, there is a point for me where, like, it can be too dry. It can be too old. Like, definitely.
So,
you know?
Essentially, the Canatrol, it allows you to digitally set the humidity and temperature inside of the machine. And I think you could set the day, too, of how long you want it to dry. But again, in my opinion, it loses terps. It's not really terpy when versus hang drying, or the way that I've normally done it.
Somebody just
I
posted a link. Hold on one sec.
I love the ideal, and the smoke's not bad to come out of it, you know, but it's not super terpy. I've only had one experience with it, you know, so I can't. But I love the ideal. I want it. I personally want it, honestly, but I think I still would hang dry a little bit first. I think it'll be great for curing.
I see it now. It's got like racks, so it does kind of look like a wine fridge, but instead it's got racks. It doesn't look like, I gotta look because this is just an ad I'm kind of looking at real quick.
It's a cold cure device.
It literally, it doesn't, I may be wrong, but it doesn't look like a freeze dryer. So I'm not sure if it just like controls the temperature at a certain point.
Yeah,
it just has kind of a little unit on the top. Whereas the freeze dryer,
Super Rich, get in the comments, man, and explain the machine. You got it. You run it. Tell us about it.
But anyway, I'm kind of looking at one right here. I mean, once again, I'm literally just looking at a picture of one.
Yeah.
It looks more like a wine fridge it is temperature controlled to some degree. Yeah.
I mean, it's essentially what we're doing, but controlled, you know?
Yeah. I don't, man, once again, like the best weed that I've ever had was hang dried, was just normally cured, normally dried, you know, usually not super old. I've probably only had weed that was older than a year that was decent once or twice in my life. Like there's definitely a shelf life where like if you pop an old jar and it wasn't just absolutely perfectly kept, it just smells and tastes like, like you said, the terps are gone. I'm a firm believer that the minute you put the scissors to that plant, the process of losing terps begins. And how well you can capture those terps and how quickly you can preserve the extraction of those terps is the most crucial thing on the planet to the quality of your final product, whether that's drying, whether that's, you know, and to me, like, you know, it's one of those things, like it's personal preference. Everybody is going to have a different need. So if you're growing a tent or 2 tents worth of weed, it's going to be a significantly different process for you to finish and harvest and cure that weed than it is for somebody who's got an 80,000 square foot grow. Like, you know, it's a process, and it all kind of depends on what you have. So like,
I think the Canatrol even comes in like commercial size, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I'm sure, you know, I'm sure. But I'm just saying, essentially, that's what's going to differentiate your process for whatever drying looks like, right?
Sure. But yeah, but no doubt, man, I must agree with you, man. The most fire bud that I've ever consumed has always been old traditional way. I am all for pushing cannabis far. I'm all for that. I'm all for having a machine that can come in and eliminate the dry process if it's giving me the same results as the original way of, you know, hang drying. I want to bring up a point that you brought up with the scissors. You said as soon as the scissors touches the biomass, terps are gone. And it's almost like a no-brainer, right?
Because they begin that process of you know, the clock starts ticking.
You're removing them. Every snip, every leaf that you cut contains what? Trichomes. Inside of those trichomes contains what?
First of all, we got to address one thing. Because if you're trimming anything wet, you're doing it all wrong. Doing it all wrong. First of all, that's one thing we need to address, like, first and foremost, is that in the process of drying, whatever you decide to do, trimming that bud while it's still wet is going to lose product, lose oil, ruin your trim, and to be honest, kind of ruin your drying process. If you're drying in something like this drying fridge or whatever we're talking about, you should still be doing so as whole buds, just because it's going to make that whole process easier. So you
Yeah.
take maybe, you know, a little bit of like really long leaf off, but you still want to leave all that sugar leaf to dry during the drying process. Because if you're trimming it while it's wet, you're going to ruin your trim, first of all, which is, it should be a product to you. Like, you should
Nothing
understand that when you're
go to
done
waste.
trimming, there's
Almost.
something there that's worth, you know, worth messing with. Make sure you don't. Well, I'll tell you stories. When I got into growing, I heard more than one person say, we just threw it away. We didn't even know.
Back
We
then.
didn't, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, that trim is, you know,
That's
most people
gold to
don't.
some people.
You
That's
and I
gold.
know this,
Yeah.
but a lot of people take for granted that that's not something everybody knows. That, like, your trim is one of the most valuable parts of your process, and you should be processing that into some form of hash. Even if you just get $20 keef box off of Amazon, even if you just, you know, in some small way, sift it for yourself or something, you know, that's gold. Like, that's the whole point of
Yeah.
growing cannabis is the resin. For years and years and years, the joke was hash is the message, cannabis is the messenger. So
Hash is
it's
the
like,
message. Cannabis is the messenger.
absolutely. Like, at the
Nice.
end of the day, if we
Nice.
could remove all the plant bits, they don't get you high. There's nothing there in the green part that's inherently psychoactive. So everything we want is in the resin. Whether you're drying it for flour, whether you're processing it into hash, whether your end goal is edibles, excuse me, it's all about is preserving as much of that oil that's in your trichome as humanly possible.
Facts. Facts, man. Um, now Queen Kush said that she's into the old school methods and she doesn't believe in this new age stuff, right? I gotta say a wave that I must jump on, and I gotta say Super Rich put me on it. The grove bags. I've tried the bucket method of curing. I've tried jar curing, but essentially, bro, again, I must say this grow with the grove bags. I really like the cure that they put on your biomass, man. And then I also love that in a way it shapes the buds too, bro. So we talk about I like a little bit of leaf left on my cannabis, right? Stuff that hits the market or is for black market sale. A lot of the leaf product is removed to make it look pretty and eye appealing, right? But people like you and I understand the benefits in the cannabinoids on the leaf matter, right? So I forgot where I was going with
I
that,
got
but
you. I'll pick you up. My pet peeve. So one of my biggest pet peeves about trimming, and this is one of those that, like, you are right. Like, to a degree, if you're trimming your grow and your goal is your garden, and it's just going to be for you and your friends,
mm-hmm.
you do whatever you want with that. Like, you do whatever you want with that. Trim it how you like. If you like it leafy, you like it hairy, you get it how you get it. But the one thing that everybody, no matter how you're trimming, should watch out for are crow's feet. And these are essentially the little petioles, leaf stems, that are left from your small to medium fan leaves.
Yeah.
Not the huge ones, because those are usually going to pop off real easily at the stem.
Okay.
But as you're trimming, you're going to notice around the bottoms of every bud, if you dried right, around the bottoms of every bud, and as you go up the bud, you're going to see these little, they look like little forks, right? Get those. Get those. Because
Why?
it makes your bud look janky, and it gives me, like, that's one of those things when I see them online, I'm like, it's worse than nails on a chalkboard for me, man, because I see it. And I'm doing a bunch of the AI images. We've been doing the, like, you know, like real bud and fake bud thing. And one of the things that I notice is crow's feet. On AI-generated buds is crow's feet. And it's so funny because I ran trim crews. Like, I've run trim crews, you know, for years and years and years. And it's one of those things that when you're looking through somebody's weed that's trimming, you can almost always tell somebody who's a newer trimmer from somebody who's been doing it for a while, because somebody who's doing it for a while, it becomes that thing you do without thinking about it. And you're just knocking them off as you're trimming. And if you dry properly, it should just be super easy to knock them off as you go. But the one thing about trimming that we don't talk about enough is scissors, scissor maintenance. Get the Fiskars. The Fiskars are almost always the best. Nothing's going to last forever. I've never really seen a pair of scissors that wasn't some family heirloom that grandma used to trim her knitting stuff with, and those, you know, something like that. That's it. They're the best. They're almost usually the easiest to clean. They're not super expensive. They're always sharp, so be careful, because I have opened my hands up with them multiple times. Multiple times. Like, I will stab myself with those things every time working in the garden, but they're the best because they're that sharp. Keep them clean. As you're trimming, when you start to see hash piling up, scrape that stuff up, clean them up, have an alcohol cleaner or something so you can clean them things off. One thing that I mentioned a couple podcasts ago, because you could probably throw these back up here and it'll probably apply, almost every pair of those I've seen eventually develop hash boogers. They get big globs of hash where your hands go, where they're not as much, and they just kind of, you end up with these big nodules. Knock that off, clean them with some alcohol, get them scissors clean. You know, the cleaner your setting when you're trimming, scissors, everything, the cleaner all of that, the cleaner your weed. So, like, one of the best things that I ever saw in any sit down with a new trimmer was, like, the first thing you teach them is cleanliness. If they don't know anything about trimming weed, the first thing you teach them is cleanliness. Because once a trim situation gets nasty, it is horrible. Like, just resin everywhere and hash everywhere, and, you know. So prepping your area for a trim, if it's your first trim, if it's your 50th trim, making sure everything is laid out clean and neat, get it looking like a murder scene. You know, like get it looking like plastic everywhere and just everything covered in something, because anything hash touches, anything weed touches, it's going to be sticky, it's going to be nasty, it's going to eventually stink. So it's like, kind of have that idea that, like, keeping everything clean, keeping alcohol around, particularly alcohol in the trim situation, whereas H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, other things work great in the garden for other stuff. Nothing bleach, nothing like that anywhere near the trim area. Always alcohol. Always only alcohol.
You know, I don't claim to know it all, and I've never worked inside of a commercial environment. So I'm so glad we get to do these, because on these episodes where you and I just sitting around talking like we do, shooting our shit, I learn something every episode. So I think that's pretty dope, man. I never knew that crow's feet was considered, you know, taboo in the game, you know. So now I'm gonna start looking out for crow's feet.
It's everybody out there, it's bad with me, because, like, not only do I run trims, but, like, I've seen a lot of weed. When I see a lot of weed, I see a lot of weed, and it's one of those things that, like, I can almost always tell how much effort and how much love you put into your trim by your weed. Now, the other part I was gonna say, if you're trimming your own weed, do what you want. If you're trimming something that's going to be sold commercially, whether it's, you know, intended to go to a dispensary or whether it's going to doesn't really matter. Professionalism is top. So, like, every bud kind of looking similar, and I don't mean that in a point where you shave them down so that they look the same, but just not leaving, like, long amounts of leaf on spots, and, like, being pretty uniform with your trim. And to me, crow's feet. And maybe it was, you know, I had people that I worked with that harped on me about it, and it's one of those things that maybe it's just something that just personal preference. It just bothers me. But to me, I can always tell a good to medium trimmer from a great trimmer by crow's feet. How particular are you about crow's feet?
Next time I go to the dispo, I'm gonna take a look and get some examining for crow's feet.
Once you start to think about it, and the big problem with it is they just taste like shit. So it's like, once they get in your bowl or get in your flour, they're going to break through your paper. You know, that's almost always what ends up busting through your paper. Crow's feet. Tiffany said crow's feet, crow's feet, crow's feet. It's one of those things, like working in trim, especially when you worked in commercial trim. It's one of those things you harp on. And like, I'm gonna be honest. If you brought a bin up and I was QCing a bin of weed that you've been trimming for the last 4 hours, and it's all crow's feet, dog, your next hour is gonna be knocking them crow's feet down. I hate to tell you.
Man, when I get inside the dispensary now, I'm gonna know. Hey, Turk told me crow's feet. We doing crow's feet around here. Crow's feet, crow's feet, crow's feet, crow's feet. I got a question for you, man. How do you feel about mechanical buckers and mechanical trimmers and stuff like that? I'm not into it.
No, and it goes to the same sort of thing. Like, there will always be products that are going to tell you they're going to help you rush the drying, curing, processing situation.
Because if that's what you're looking for, then I think the mechanical trimmers will give you that uniform look that you're talking about, right? But in my opinion, look how much THC and cannabinoids and terpenes, it's all lost getting knocked around.
A great trimmer, and this is the whole thing. It goes back to, I've harped about this a lot as we've had different conversations, but it goes back to paying the good people the good money. So when you find a trimmer, particularly somebody who's quick, who can knock down pounds in a day, who can also do so at a quality level that is commercial, you pay that person the money they need. Because the truth is, all of those machines, all of the bags, all of the gimmicks, it'll rush the process for you. It will absolutely save you time. But at what cost? At what cost? You know, with the bags, you definitely losing resin. With any of them, with the bags, like the trim bags. Isn't that what you were talking about earlier?
No, I was
Where you like throw the weed in it, shake it, and it knocks all the leaf off of it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I got you.
I was talking about grove bags.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. Grove bags is they look like, the little product bags that you see everywhere, but these bags are specifically made for curing.
Yeah, have you seen those? The trim bags?
No, the trim bags, yeah. I'm not a fan because, again,
it's another one where, like, it's probably going to be a little quicker, but at what cost? There's always a cost to rushing the process, even if it's drying, if it's hash making, whatever it is. If you're that big a hurry, just make fresh.
I've never used it.
Just make fresh frozen hash. Yeah, I've never used one either, to be honest. I have seen them used, just like I've seen in a commercial grow most of the trim products, whether it be the tornado trimmers or the trim bro or whatever it is. It's just like a plate that rotates. I've seen all of them.
Yes,
and while they will make the trimming process a little bit easier.
Yes, Danny, it is a humidity controlled bag. And again, some people aren't fans of the little digital hygrometers, but each one of my bags, I put a digital hygrometer inside of that bag, and I got to, quote unquote, get a reading of what the humidity and temperature was inside the bag. So grove bag. I highly recommend it. I love them.
Yeah, I haven't really used those, to be honest. I know Boveda is another thing that a lot of people use. You see those a lot in, situations that maybe aren't ideal. They tend to be either to kind of control that last couple of weeks. The other thing that we don't talk about a lot in the curing department is essentially the density of your material. So, like, if you kind of have little leafy, larvae buds, trying to get those to dry and cure the way you would something that has a reasonable amount of density to it is a tricky thing, and is kind of how you should, proceed and how you process to the end. Like, not everything is made for growing and trimming as flower. Really, the best looking bud should be flower. Everything else should go to something else, whether it be hash, whether it be, there's other places to put bee material. So it's like if you've got larf or if you've got smalls or you've got popcorn buds, like selling that as flour, I mean, even at a discounted point, let's be
In my
honest, you
opinion,
make more
bro,
money just selling it as pre-rolls.
if you dry your bud properly, you won't need a Velveeta pack. In my
Oh,
opinion,
that's true.
you shouldn't even put your bud
Well,
in whatever.
it's not necessarily a properly thing, because when you live in one of the extremes as far as humidity levels, so if you live somewhere that's super dry or you live somewhere where it's super humid, it's not necessarily that you didn't, it's a very
Yeah,
tricky
true,
balance,
true.
you know, and
But
it's like,
well, how about I say this? Your biomass should not go into the vehicle in which you're curing it in until it's dry.
oh yeah, no,
Until it
absolutely. No, absolutely. That's
until
what begging for mold.
right. So, and that's why again I say you shouldn't need a Velveeta pack. If you need a Velveeta pack, you put your biomass into the storage device too early.
Well,
You know?
once again, that's where I get that's not quite the same, because when you live somewhere like the East Coast where it's super humid, right? You don't just put your flour in the jar and then just seal it, right? Eventually, you're going to burp those jars. You're going to open those jars. You're going to vent those jars
What
out. You don't
jar?
do that at all?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So
Jar,
once
yes.
you do that, as soon as you do that, you're now using air that's the same humidity as wherever you've opened that jar up. So if you live somewhere where it's
Right.
moist, that might be super wet or super dry weed.
You put
Once
it-
you open that jar up,
Right.
if it's not under controlled humidity situations, you've now exposed it to humid air. And that's just going to make everything, the process is a lot more tricky. Like I said, when you live somewhere in the extremes where, you know, say you live in Colorado, Arizona, you know, a handful of those states right around there that are just dry, like super dry, you can ruin your weed in 3 days. You know,
Yeah.
whereas if you live somewhere like Florida, like the homie, somewhere like Florida, you could be looking at 3 weeks and it's still not like brittle dry.
Hey, Turk,
It's super tricky. Vegas is another one. Yeah, Nevada.
what time did we start?
We were about 5-6 minutes late, so we still got a couple more minutes.
Okay. I didn't know if you want to like come back in and do it, you know, keep going, because it sounds like we can talk about it all night, or you know, we can keep it going
I mean,
if you want.
we still got 10 more minutes.
Okay, cool.
Before we really need to wrap up. I mean, unless you're ready, I don't care. I can
No,
go
no,
find
no.
something
I
else to
mean,
do.
we can keep it going. I want to, you know, do more than an hour tonight. It's 5 episodes tonight. We're rolling.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, like, it's kind of the unspoken part about drying and curing, is that it all depends on where you live, like, as to how your drying process. If you live in a climate that's not super humid, it's not super arid, it's not really dry, it's not really moist, drying's a pretty easy thing. And the notion that, you know, you can control a drying room, that is true if you dry and cure in the same space. But I think where a lot of these gimmicks and things like that, the reason that they're so popular is because that's space you could be using for something else. So like that drying space that you're using, or if you're, you know, drying in your grow space, that's time you're losing, it's time you're wasted. If you have a separate separate drying area, that's space you could be using for something else. That's, you know, there's all these trade-offs, and that's where a lot of these gimmicks come from, is if you can shorten that, if you can make it easier, if you can, you know, the notion is that it's going to make it better, quicker, more affordable. But let's be honest, I worked in one of the largest grows in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they produced what I would have said was really good weed, not great weed, good weed. The problem was they would immediately hack it all down, they would dry it on racks, they would bucket all through trim machines, and then by the time you would go to see it at the dispensary,
It smelled totally different.
it was all mint. It was all mint. It was
Yeah.
all mint. Every bit of it was just straight mint. I'm just being nice. It was garbage. It was trash.
And that's what I like about the growth bags, man. It's like set it and forget it. You don't have to burp them. You the technology in which
And
they
you need to
claim,
start getting sponsorships before you start plugging these brands so hard, bro.
bro, I can only speak on what I use. Shit. It ain't a
Right.
plug. It's a good product.
I know. I'm just busting your balls.
They should pay me, but they got a good product. Fuck them. You know what I'm saying? Fuck it. So, but that's what I like about it, bro. And it's all the reason why I think at the end of the process of one of those large growers in Colorado is it's too many hands. It's being touched so much. Every time you touch that, especially if you're bucking it, because once you buck it, there's nothing to grab onto. You're touching the bud itself. And every time all the finger hash you get, yeah, everyone's happy with finger hash, but that's wasted trichomes, that's wasted, cannabinoids all on your finger now and not ending up in the end goal.
It's lost money. That's what it is. It's lost money. Like it's money down the drain. Yeah, however you look at it.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure.
And see, here's the thing, man. Like, I've always said that cannabis at scale, at a certain scale, is always going to be problematic. Because if you're just selling people pre-rolls and they don't give a shit what it is or what it looks like, and there's kind of this implicit, like, I just need something to smoke, I don't really care kind of agreement, then that's one thing. But, like, the reality is, at a certain scale, it's not cost effective to have to pay trimmers to trim. So that's the first place they almost always look to cut money in a commercial grow is the trim. And the minute they make that compromise, however it happens, is the minute their weed quality goes straight down.
Yeah, hey, here's another shot. Walmart. As soon as Walmart implemented machines instead of people, I hate going to Walmart. I don't go. Fuck them. You know what I mean? Like, you're replacing the quality of service, Some people get in there and they love trimming. That's what they do. That's what they take pride in. And the end result shows versus a machine that's just going to manhandle the bud to its pulp, So
yeah, but I mean, the truth is, too, machines don't steal product. Like machines don't. There's a lot of reasons why people do it, but in weed specifically, it absolutely affects the final product. Anybody that says that a trim machine or a trim gimmick or something like that doesn't inevitably alter the product in a negative way is probably selling those machines or has a benefit from selling those machines. Like, anybody that's a connoisseur will generally tell you that trimmed weed, properly dried weed, even weed with a little bit of cure on it is going to be the best. It's the best smoking. It's the best. The other thing when we get into the whole debate about white ash, which is a big thing in smoking and like joints burning to a proper ash, a lot of that is the drying process as well. So like fresher weed will almost always leave more residue. Yeah, more char, more black, more, whatever it looks like. It's not going to burn as well as something that's had that moisture completely controlled throughout and then, has been properly dried. Really.
Definitely. It's all about patience, man. Like, again, you speed up the process, I feel like you lose something. I got a question, though. How do you get grows to invite you to see their processes and their facilities or something like that for somebody like me?
Let me put it to you this way, man. Most of the grows, the best way to do it, to be honest with you, just between you and I, since nobody else is listening to this, social media. Like, the best way is to make friends and grows and through social media and stuff like that, and then, talk your way to grows that way, because that's how I've seen more facilities, either that or grows that I literally worked at, or for whatever the situation was. But yeah, that's the easiest way, social media, because most grows aren't really open to just letting
Right.
anybody walk through their grow
Right.
for very obvious
Right.
reasons. And it's like the social media thing always got, you know, it was always easy to get you into grows because there is a little bit of, you know, implicit trust that you're an actual weed person, that you're not just somebody local that just wants to, you know, make a stink or see something they shouldn't see. The thing
Right.
about letting people into your grow is that for somebody like me, the minute I walk into your grow, I learn more about you and your company than you would ever tell me openly. Because I see what you're doing, I see what you're not doing, I see the problems you have, I see the things you're avoiding, I see your processes and how everything's set up. So there's a lot to just letting anybody in your grow, aside from the security issues and the, you know, like the obvious, like I said, that's what I think of as the obvious stuff, like the security problems and, you know, the issues of just even an illegal grow. There's still the same sort of threats, and there's, you know, somebody could break in the door,
Right.
and somebody
The
now
risk of
knows
injury.
where the
What happens
grow
if they get
is, and
injured on your property? That's probably a whole nother shit show. You know, someone spilled some you know, feed or something, they slip and fall. I'm pretty sure that is like a storm waiting to happen. Well,
yeah.
I'm
So
sorry, man. We digress. I just
no,
had to ask that
man, and
question.
that's one of those that like we'll talk about that more. I mean, it all depends. I don't know too many grows in your area. Like, I don't know too many Virginia growers. If anybody out there working in happens to see this, and is anybody working in a commercial Virginia grow, hit me up. We'll do some work. But, you know, that's the way with a lot of the grows that I've been to that weren't places I worked. It was almost always social media stuff. Like, just,
Really?
you know, I'm in the area. Hey, guys, who wants to get up and let's sesh? We'll sesh, you know, we'll sit around, hang out. And then it's like, you want to come see the grow? And it's like, yeah, for sure, you know, especially if it's somewhere that's grown my seeds, because I've done a bunch of those too. Like there was
That's
not
dope,
terribly, yeah, not terribly long ago, there was a spot in Denver that was running my gear. All of my people that I knew that were working there left, so I don't want to give them any more free plugs, but it was a hash company essentially. And, but they have their own grow and they do their own, you know, everything. And when I went to hang out, the couple guys that knew me and that I knew well, or fairly well through social media and stuff like that, were all awesome. And they, you know, were super eager to show me off, show everything, you know, what they were doing in the grow and how the extracts. And they had some really nice solventless extract gear. But it was because they were growing my seeds and had run some stuff of mine. And I actually, that was one of the best situations. I actually got to try some of the white cherry wedding cake live rosin. It was unbelievable. They said it didn't yield super well, which, excuse me, in a commercial grow, it needs to yield super well to really get in rotation.
Yeah.
And so they didn't, I don't think they ended up keeping that cut. But it was cool because I got to see some of the process, got to see everything, how everything went down, and then got to kind of leave with some stuff. And I traded them, left them a bunch of seeds. And that's the best thing you can do, man, is just network, because there's a lot of, like, when you're in the weed scene and community and you're around weed and growers and things like that, you know, you just end up in grows sometimes. It's one of those things. Yeah. The less you want that, the less you go looking for that, the more likely it is that it'll happen. Mm-hmm. Because it's one of those things that, like, the more eager you are to get into people's grows, the less anybody's ever going to invite you into one. It's just how it goes. But when you don't really care, and you do some events, be around growers, and you'd be surprised the next time somebody's like, "You can go see the grow."
You know, for sure. So I've been to a few grows, definitely here in Virginia. You know, I kind of run the scene in Virginia, you know. But as far as the medical side, so, like, again, I don't want to give any
close. We are getting close time-wise. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, man. And if you want, we can drop this one and keep it going, man. I'm pretty sure everyone will be back. Or however you want to do it, man. If you want to drop your plug now, that's cool.
Yeah, I really needed to go do the family stuff, man. We just got done eating before I did this, so I really need to balance. We'll pick up next week. We got about half of this done. We could still do, like, extracts, concentrates, you know, edibles, all of that good stuff next week, and still kind of tiptoe around some other stuff. Where can folks find you, man?
So you can find me here on The Real Mac Blunts on Instagram. You can find me on Snapchat at The Real Mr. Mac Blunts. You can find me on Twitch at Mr. Mac Blunts. You can find me on YouTube at Mr. Mac Blunts. So you guys give a follow. It's going to be a great journey to the top. I appreciate you, Turk, for the platform. And it's been another episode of Dank Talk.
Yeah, I'm glad we figured this out. We got to get this all on Discord soon, or find somewhere else to do this. That's me. That's me. I got to just pull the trigger. And we're going to see how this thing goes Sunday. We're doing a thing on Sunday on the Discord. If you haven't already, go follow me on the Terp Fiend Discord. There's a link on my Instagram at Terp Fiend, TERPFI3ND. You can get all my links there from my link tree. But essentially, we're going to start doing these on Discord. Go check the Discord out. Go to Reddit, something like that. But the place you can always find my seeds, www.terpfiend.com, TERPFI3ND.com. Like I said, we post these on YouTube, so Lord knows where you'll end up seeing this. Wherever you end up watching it, go check one of our social pages out. Go check Reddit, Discord, Twitter, something other than Instagram. But thank you guys so much.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Stay tuned. Business is Blooming episode Saturday with Danny Turpentine.
That's going to be a
shout out,
banger.
Man.
I'll check that one out, man, for sure.
Peace.
All right, dog.